welcome back to this Wednesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name, your congenial, convivial, and amiable host, as always. With me in studio right now is Jeremy Wiggins, a colleague of mine here at AFR. Jeremy, welcome to
Brian,
Focal Point.
You could say some nice words about me, too.
The nicest thing I can say about Jeremy, is that when he came in to sit down with me to help me do this interview with Toby Harmon, our next guest, he said, look, I'm here to try to make you look good. And I said, Jeremy, making me look better than I look right now, that's a pretty low bar. That's not going to take a lot of doing, but I appreciate the thought and appreciate the effort. No, Jeremy has been on this program before, has done some investigative journalism for this program before, so we appreciate having him here. And Jeremy was the one that drew my attention to this story, and so I wanted to bring him on to help me chat with the next guest, whose name is Toby Harmon, lives in Norman, Oklahoma. He is part of an organization, a grassroots group called Abolish Human Abortion. These are abolitionists on the subject of abortion, and we want to talk with Toby about something that happened to him in his work as a sidewalk counselor in Norman, Oklahoma. So, Toby, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Well, it's great to have you on. And Toby, we've got some B-roll. So those of our viewing and listening audience that may be watching on video streaming or catching us on one of our television stations, you occasionally will see some B-roll of this episode because Toby and his colleague recorded a good part of this on video. Some of it, the camera's looking at the pavement because they're trying to fend off the blows from this attacker. But Toby, I want to set that up so people will see a little bit of the B-roll here. So Toby set up for us exactly what would happen. How did this thing go down?
Okay. Me and my friend Jeremy were out at the clinic, which we consider the final lines in the abortion battle. And I had been preaching about 10 minutes before this young man and this young lady walked out, and she was clearly distraught. It was pretty apparent she had just had an abortion. So we called out to her and we said, excuse me, did you have an abortion today, and can we offer you some help? And it seemed like they were expecting to have somebody speak to them when they came out, so I assumed they heard me preaching outside. And the young man turned and became aggressive, and she said, no, stop, don't do this, you never listened to me, she told her boyfriend. And he began approaching us. He shoved my friend Jeremy to the ground, and at that point I said, look, I'm recording this, you're on video, so you need to leave, you're going to get in trouble. And upon realizing that he was being recorded, that's when he started approaching me and pursuing me, upon which he grabbed the camera that I had mounted on my chest, smashed it to the ground, stomped it with his boot, and at that point I pulled out my other camera and began filming with that camera, which is why, as you mentioned, it was all shaky and kind of all over the place because I was actually protecting that camera from him grabbing it as he was coming after me because his goal was to destroy the evidence, obviously.
And we're looking at the B-roll right now, Toby, and it's evident from this segment of the videotape that you are retreating. I mean, you're not being confrontational. You're not physically challenging this individual in any way. In fact, you're retreating in order to make peace and prevent this from escalating.
Yeah, that's correct. We're backing up the whole time. Obviously, you can see he punches my friend Jeremy in the face, and responding to being punched in the face, Jeremy says, there's forgiveness in Christ. And also at one point later in the video, you can hear me tell him, look, man, can't you see that we're not assaulting you back? Trying to reason with him to just, stop doing what he's doing. So.
Well, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say, Brian, to me, this seems like a pretty clear, cut and dry case of assault here. We have on videotape one person physically assaulting another person. I mean, to you, doesn't that seem like there would be enough evidence to file a police report or something like that? But Toby, what we're seeing now, and one of the reasons why we're having you on, is because the Norman Police Department in Norman, Oklahoma, is kind of dragging their feet on this. Go ahead and tell us what happened after this altercation.
Yeah, so the police arrived on the scene, and I let them know that we had video evidence, and they didn't seem interested in it. Didn't take it into their custody, so there's been no chain of custody with the video. So I went ahead and downloaded onto my computer, threw it up on YouTube to try to get us some exposure to kind of pressure them into paying attention to it.
And by the way, Toby, let me interject here. If you go to our Focal Point Facebook page, I have provided a link to this YouTube video. If you follow me on Twitter, Brian J. Fisher is the handle. I've also tweeted out a link to this video. So go to the Focal Point Facebook page, like the Facebook page, go to that video link and like that and share that with your friends so the word gets out about what has happened here. And I'll give the number, Toby, in a minute. I'll give the number to the Norman Police Department so folks can kind of weigh in and encourage the Norman Police Department to do what they do their sworn duty here. But anyway, finish your story about how this thing developed with the police department.
Yeah, and so the police are there. They take his statement. They take my statement. He presses charges on me. I press charges on him. Jeremy presses charges on him. But they never asked for the video evidence. And actually, from the first camera that was smashed, the micro SD card had been lost somewhere in the middle of the street. And I informed them that I needed to find this SD card to have this video evidence. And they insisted that we leave the scene before finding it and come back later that evening to find it. And all the police actually left the scene while the assailant and we were still there looking for the SD card. And so I emailed the DA the links to the videos, never heard a response back. This guy actually came back the next week and threatened us, told us we had 10 minutes to leave or else he would break another one of our cameras. And I recorded that as well. And the officer that arrived about 45 minutes later told me to email him the video evidence and that he would forward it to the prosecution. And I've never heard anything back, and it ended up getting referred to mediation. And they said that my video evidence, because it was from an interested party, would not be considered.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, and so I was trying to let them know, if somebody had been murdered next to me, my friend Jeremy had been murdered, surely they would use that as video evidence. And she cut me off and said all she cared about was whether I was willing to do mediation or not.
Well, that's absolutely absurd, Toby, that the victim is not allowed to provide any evidence to the crime. That's just absurd from any standpoint, rationally, logically, ethically, legally, constitutionally. That's just ridiculous. It's ludicrous.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like if somebody went and robbed a bank and the bank used video surveillance to catch, the robber, and the police were like, well, you're an interested party, so we can't use your surveillance camera, so we're going to throw that out.
Well, also, too, we learned from watching the video, Toby, that he didn't just assault you physically. Did he not make some threats to you as well? Threats on your on providing you bodily harm as well?
Yeah, at one point he told me that you're not going to ever have kids again after I'm done with you, and that's where he proceeds to try to kick me in the crotch and, cause me to be unable to have children in the future. He kicked me in the legs about 6 or 7 times, which you can't see because I'm holding the camera behind me. And then also as he's walking away, he says, you're lucky I didn't have my gun or I would have shot you by now. And that's why I asked him, did you just threaten my life? And he's like, yeah, I sure did. And,
so he not only makes the threat, if I had a gun, I'd shoot you, and you clarify, did you just threaten me? And on tape, he says, yeah, I did.
Exactly. And I actually found his Facebook page, and there's numerous pictures of him with his guns shooting at clay targets and stuff. So
that was not an idle threat, in other words. He might have had a gun in his car for all you knew.
Yeah, exactly.
Go
ahead.
I just had one other question, because it seems to me, looking at the videotape, it seems, talking here with Toby Harmon, a sidewalk counselor at an abortion clinic in Norman, Oklahoma, the victim of an all-out physical assault. Police in Norman, Oklahoma, completely uninterested in doing their sworn duty to prosecute the assailant. But it looked to me from the tape, Toby, as if there was the initial assault where there's some distance between you and him. You're not up in their grill. You're not up in their face. You're not harassing them. You're offering help to the woman who's obviously distressed over the abortion, but you're just speaking. You're not yelling, you're not harassing, you're not physically confronting. And he comes some distance to make the initial physical contact with you. And it looks to me like there were actually maybe as many as 3 episodes where he retreated or there was some distance, and then he closes ground again in order to perpetuate the physical assault. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He was originally, when he comes out the door, you're about 30 feet from where I would be standing and where me and my friend were. And so he covered that distance. We didn't come to him. You know, we couldn't take a step forward or we'd be on private property. So he came to us, threw our signs, broke our cameras, ripped my clothes, all kinds of stuff. He retreats, and I'm standing across the street still filming, and he's irritated that I'm still filming, so he comes back and tries to get the video again, grabs my hat, takes it, spits in it, throws it in a puddle, stomps on it. Then he comes at me again. And so, yeah, it's about 3 times that he stops and then comes back for more.
And so what the city of Norman wants you to do, they want you to meet with some mediator. Can't we all get along? Let's just sit down and kind of talk things over. When a crime has been committed, physical assault, multiple cases of physical assault, property has been stolen, property has been damaged, and they apparently have no interest in doing their sworn duty. Jeremy, anything you want to add before I ask one last question for Toby?
Well, no, Brian, I just wanted your audience to really understand why we're talking about this. This is a blatant assault against our freedom of speech here. And the police officers in Norman, Oklahoma are not doing anything to uphold the law. They're choosing what they want to enforce and what they don't want to enforce. And I just the reason I brought this to your attention is this is grievous, and this sets a precedent for the rest of the country that the people who are not safe exhibiting their First Amendment rights, their right to freedom of expression, the right to gather, this is just goes in the face of the Constitution on so many levels, and the police department, whose job it is to protect us, are actually making it worse.
Number to call if you want to call the Norman, Oklahoma Police Department and urge them to prosecute those who assaulted my guest, Toby Harmon, 405-321-1600, 405-321-1600. That's the Norman, Oklahoma Police Department. Encourage them to prosecute the man who assaulted Toby Harmon and his colleague. Toby, 15 seconds. Anything you want to add in closing?
Well, my intention is not to want to, seek vengeance on this guy or anything like that, but I do want to see justice served, and I would like, again, like Jeremy said, for there to be a precedent set that people cannot be attacked while they're outside trying to hold people back from the slaughter. So.
Our guest has been Toby Harmon, a member of the organization Abolish Human Abortion. Thank you, Toby. God bless you. We'll be back after 2.